Welcome to another episode of Foresight TV. This is mostly when we talk about aging, we've got this big anti-aging thing that's going on, rightfully so. I'm not arguing with that. I think ageism is a huge problem, but we don't really talk about how hard, particularly dementia is, and that's a real thing. And so we are going to actually explore the realities of aging and dementia with two people who have lived it and have shared that through through photos. And so I am just really excited about that, and we're going to get started with this. Hey guys, Steve Moran here. Each week at the beginning of the show, I talk about how this Foresight TV is brought to you by KARE, the non-agency agency. And I always go into it thinking, how do I tell this story better? But here's the thing. They are here to make your life as an operator better. And they are here to fill this huge gap when you have shifts that you cannot fill. And rather than going to an agency, paying a ton of money for that, you in fact can go to them. It's a little bit more expensive than your own staff, but actually probably less expensive than paying overtime. And so it is a great way to go. Or maybe you just need to give your people a break. And so you bring in some of their staff. James Lee with Bella Groves, I think he took and staffed his entire building with people from KARE so we could do a Christmas party. What a delightful, wonderful thing to do. And he could do that because it wasn't crazy expensive. So we just absolutely appreciate KARE's passion for the industry. We appreciate their support. And one of the ways that you can say thanks to them is if you've got shifts you need to fill in, you should go talk to them, ask them what they're doing, ask them what they can do for you. We've got way more guests on than we usually do, so this will be a new kind of exciting time for me, and I am very excited about this. So this conversation all started with a press release that I think either Gina or somebody as part of your team sent out with the Bob and Diane.
The team.
Is that?
I'm the team.
You're the team. Okay. So Gina, I want to actually do just a quick introduction. So Gina leads the Bob and Diane Fund. She's going to talk a little bit about that. Carrie is the Dementia Darling. You're more likely to know her than these other people. And then Helen is a photographer who won the 2003, do you call it award, prize?
Grant.
Yeah. And she has created some just touching, amazing, wonderful photographs of her mother's journey through Alzheimer and dementia. And so we're going to hear her story in a minute. So Gina, let's hear your story. I want to start with that.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. So I started the Bob and Diane Fund in 2016. My mom had Alzheimer's. She was diagnosed in 2006, and she actually only lived with it for 5 years, which isn't that long. She passed away in 2011, and my dad, who was her, they've been married for 49 years, loyal caregiver, he died 3 months later of a broken heart. So I wanted to do something to honor both of them because Alzheimer's really affected my father just as much as my mother. So I had been working at National Geographic. I was there for 21 years, and my passion is photography, as you could see with all the photo books behind me, and finding a cure for Alzheimer's. So I decided to find a way to merge these two. And in 2016, we started the Bob and Diane Fund. And what we do is we want to bring a visual awareness to this disease that has been living in the shadows for so long. People who don't have not experienced dementia don't quite understand it. And those who are living with it in their family don't talk about it. So I wanted to bring a way for people to really understand it. And working at National Geographic, I knew that visual storytelling can make a difference. It can change policy, it can change perception. So I decided to give a $5,000 grant to a photographer every year who is working on a story related to dementia. So it's a project that's already started, hopefully almost finished, and then getting that work published worldwide to bring that awareness around the world. So that's kind of where we start, how we started.
And so I'm going to ask one more question, and then I want to
Okay.
visit with Helen here a little bit. But how did you find Helen?
Everything is so as you said, my team is me, except for I have someone who does my social media. Everything I've done is through social media. And because I've been in the photo industry for so long, I have been fortunate that like time.com originally announced our grant and our winner. And ever since the first year, the Washington Post announces our winner every year. We've been published in the New York Times, Huffington Post, NPR, ARP. We've been very fortunate on the press we've gotten. So when we're asking for submissions in September, I just put it out there on social, and then it gets really picked up and people share it. And then that's how we get submissions. We get approximately somewhere between 50 and 70 submissions each year. This year or 2023, we got 95. And
Wow.
every year, surprisingly, we get from 25 different countries. I mean, all over the world. So I did not know Helen before. We have a very dear mutual friend, but we did not know each other, and I didn't know the work. And this was the first time she submitted. I'm pretty sure. Correct me if I'm wrong, Helen, but there are winners who have submitted more than once, and they maybe didn't win till the second or third time. So Helen submitted for the first time in 2023, and we saw her work, and that was it. That was the winner of the grant for 2023.
So Helen, I want to hear your story, and maybe we can go ahead and put up some of your photographs as well. Helen, why don't you start by telling us a little bit about your journey and what inspired you to do these photographs?
Sure. Well, my mum was my best friend my whole life, basically. Sort of told her everything. We were really, really, really close.
So I'm going to stop you for 1 second. I want to stop you for 1 second. So you've got an accent that's very different than the rest of us. Where are you from? Let's start with that.
I'm from the UK, so I'm born in Wales, but live in London.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Now continue on.
I'm back in Wales looking after my mum, so back and forth. Yeah, basically, my mum was. I studied photojournalism and documentary photography. I've worked around the world, from Afghanistan, India, in various projects, Kashmir for a long time. And then when Mum was diagnosed in 2015, I knew I wanted to make a project on her. And I discussed it with my mum because I'd always made photographs of her, and she was part of sort of my life and my work. And I'd done various little projects at uni on her and different things about her OCD. And so she was always really comfortable with me photographing her and really, really supportive of my career. So, when she was diagnosed, I said, I think that it would be really important for us to do a project on this, on your journey, on what happens. I was super naive, I guess, in the way that I thought dementia, you just get forgetful, and, you see in films where people just forget your name, but at the last minute they remember and get up and have a dance and everything's fine. And, I thought when I buy a flat, because I was at that point trying to save up to buy my own place, I'll get a 2-bedroom so she can come and live with me, because she'll be forgetful, but she'll still be her. So it'll be fine and I can look after her. And obviously started making this project. Mum agreed. She agreed that it would be important. And, she totally consented to it when she was still. And then we started, obviously the project I've been making pictures of her all my life, but I made some in 2015, 16, 17, but nothing visually was really happening at that point. You know, she would forget words, people's names, things like that. But I do that all the time anyway. So ADHD brain. So
Same.
yeah. So I just used to say to her, don't worry about it. You know, you've lost your keys. I do that every day. It's fine. I leave my keys on the door and then look for them. And they're in the outside of my front door.
Yep.
So, yeah, I think we used to joke about it. You know, think it's fine. Don't worry. It won't get any worse than this. It's just going to be forgetting words. And then obviously as she started to change and the disease started to progress, I started to do more work because there was physicalities and things that you could start to see and show in imagery. And then, yeah, started to do much more work on it in 2018, 19. I took her on a beautiful trip around Europe in 2018 because I wanted to do something that we could both enjoy together. And a lot of people said, why are you doing this? Because she won't remember it. And I said, no, but she'll love it at the time and I'll remember it. So, you know, just because she won't remember it later, she loved that trip. We did Aperol spritzes every night at sunrise, and I made a book on that and beautiful pictures of her. So it was an amazing trip for about a month. And then, yeah, we did another trip in 2019, but you could really see the difference. She didn't love sitting around people watching anymore. She wanted to go home a lot. She was a lot more confused, but we still had, you know, a good time, but not. And then, yeah, in 2020, when COVID happened, she had full-time carers by this point, 2 PAs per day. But they were shielding, they were various things, you know, the kid's sick, is it COVID? We can't come into work, we got to go to a testing centre. So my sister was trying to manage working as a nurse because she was never furloughed, obviously. And she's got 2 small children, so she's trying to do that and having to look after my mum. So I started coming down, covering, was one of the carers quit. Mum became really aggressive because all her meds were wrong. So I was doing weekends, 4 days a week in London, and then coming down and doing 3 days looking after my mum. And then, yeah, and then both the carers quit and we put her into respite for a month, but they put her in the wrong home and it all went horribly wrong. They put her on lorazepam behind our backs without telling us. They put her in pads during the day when she was continent at that point. They couldn't bath her because they couldn't manage her because it was a mild to moderate home. So then they were calling my sister every day and they said, if you don't take her out, we're going to section her because she's too anxious to go into a different home now. So my sister's got 2 young kids. She's like, I can't look after her full time. So I quit my life in London basically and moved back down to her house in Wales to look after her. Initially, it was going to be just for a couple of months to find a good home. And then I just thought she would have looked after me. She would have been there for me. She would do it for me. And I realized being with her was really hard, but also I wanted to make this project, and being here all the time made that more possible. And yeah, I just didn't want to let her go because she was my best friend. And the state of care homes in the US is the same here. There's no staff since COVID, since Brexit. We've got no staff. We've got, you know, they don't bath them every day because they can't. And Mum has always bathed every day, and she wears pads at night, so she, you know, she needs to be bathed. And the one-to-one care that I can give her, I don't trust other people. I mean, it's not that I don't trust them, but they're so short-staffed. And so I've just ended up, I've been doing it now for over 2 years. And it's been brutal. I mean, I've got a lot of writing that I was doing on WhatsApp to a now ex-friend. But yeah, I'm using that as part of the project because it's just something awful would happen. And I wrote to him straight away. So it's raw emotions of how it felt in that moment. And yeah, then talking to our mutual friend, Robin, he's like, you want to use that in the book? And I'd been thinking about that for a while. I just didn't think anyone else would want to hear my rantings. But then as I started to piece it together and, you know, look at the images with really raw emotional pieces that don't go with that image, but it's just how other people feel. Yeah, that's sort of when it started to coming together. And then I'd heard about Bob and Diane Fund the year before when I was going to enter, but I missed the deadline because being a carer and ADHD and everything else, I didn't know when the deadline was. And I was like, oh, I've missed it. But in a way, I think it was a good thing because the project had progressed a lot more by the time I entered. Because I had to go through 20,000 images, a shot over years. Some of it's on phone, because if that's the only thing you've got handy, you grab your phone, like selfies, things on holiday. It's like, oh, I'll get a phone because nobody can use my camera, nothing's in focus. And then others are on the phone. So I had to correlate it all together and then go through all the WhatsApp messages over 3 years, pull out the ones about mum. So yeah, it took a long time to bring it all together and then start to edit it, narrow it down. And then, yeah, ask a couple of mutual friends to have a look once I'd got a decent edit. So I've got it down to about 500 images. And then you know what your favorites are, but you kind of, and then I entered some competitions last year. So it got in Taylor Weston National Portrait Prize and Portrait of Britain. So it was kind of shown around Britain. So yeah, it started to gain momentum. And then, yeah, winning this was amazing because it's meant that the awareness we can raise is just huge. And I did an interview with the BBC, and it went viral apparently. So yeah, it literally blew up. I had the most beautiful messages from people all over the world, messages in WhatsApp, messages in emails, Facebook, on like Instagram, people just saying, I hope you don't mind me writing, but thank you so much because this is how I see I see my mum in your eyes, but I've not been able to vocalize how it feels being a carer. The support was amazing. There was a few nasty comments, as you always get, but really very, very few compared to the amount of support and people just saying thank you, because there's no support network for carers. For me, I felt the same. You feel so alone being a carer and shut off. Like the last 2 months, I feel like I've barely been out of the house. It's just me and mum. Her language now is, she doesn't do a lot of coherent sentences. We've got some words still, but it's not. So it's very kind of isolating. It's very hard. And I'm a real extrovert social person. So it's really hard for me being here and sort of, sometimes I don't take photos for quite a long time because your mood is so low. You can't see pictures. You can't feel creative. Sometimes as the carer, I'm like, she's fallen on the floor. I've got to help her, but you have to step back and go, I need to document this. So it's a fine line between looking after her and caring for her, but also trying to record it. So you have to step back. Like once when she wet herself at the kitchen table and I was like, hang on a minute, I need to not clean this up and it sounds horrible, but I needed to record that before and just step back and sort of be the photographer and not the carer for a minute. And so it's been hard doing both. I think I could have done a lot more beautiful work if I wasn't her caregiver, but also then maybe it wouldn't be so intimate.
It wouldn't have been the same.
I agree. So Helen, so your mom's still alive and you're still her caregiver. Is that correct?
Yeah, my sister helps as well. So my sister lives up the road. So she covers when I've got, because I've got a mortgage in London, a big one. So I'm still sort of trying to keep my business going as well. So I'm looking after mum, also keeping my business going, shooting and trying to make this project. I want to make a book and an exhibition, but also I'm trying to make a film, and that's not my forte. So I'm struggling with that. And I did ask a friend of mine who's an amazing filmmaker to do it. But again, I think it's the intimacy of our relationship and of us. But I am going to get people to edit it because I can't edit film. There's no way I can edit photography, but film's so far out of my comfort zone. Shooting it, okay, it's, visually it's beautiful, but editing it with audio.
Okay, so Carrie, I'd like to have you just sort of respond to all of this. I think that Helen, I'm going to start by setting the stage a little bit. I think that one of the things that is so hard for us to do is to be vulnerable. And yet every time I watch people be vulnerable about circumstances like this, what you end up doing is helping other people because it just really resonates with people. So Carrie, thoughts?
Oh, so many thoughts. And I want to just start off by saying it's an honor to even be a part of this discussion with such amazing women and to start off on the first day of Women's History Month and talk to you, because you both are making history in our industry and in the world. And this is so important. And Gina, thank you for creating this. Thank
Oh,
you.
thank
Thank you, and thank you for choosing me.
Yes. And just elevating these stories is so important. And like you said, you know, these big outlets picking up on this is because people need to hear this and people feel so alone. So Helen, thank you for being vulnerable. Thank you for doing this. And, you know, in the beginning, asking your mother for permission. I'm the same way. I talk to my parents, you know, we have an agreement. They're ready to share their story if that comes the time, you know, and we need to be open about these things because, again, the isolation is hurting so much more, you know, on top of the role of being a caregiver. You don't need to be isolated with no education and no support and all that other stuff. So we don't need those barriers on top of everything else. So I just can't thank you enough for showing, you know, the transparentness of this experience, because of course, you know, we want to change that tragedy narrative because that's the only thing we see. But it's also, you know, these hard parts, these parts that no human should have to experience, the caregiver or the person enduring this dementia. But we are, and more people are, you know, everyone's going to be touched by this eventually in some way or another. And I just, you know, wish people outside of our little world would open up to that and wake up to that. And these projects are so important, and your voice is so important. So thank you. And, you know, I just think it's really important to show the reality. And so people don't, when they're in those moments in their real life, they're not thinking, oh my gosh, this is just me. This is just my family member hitting a low point. It's like, no, this is really common. Like, you know, you talk to people and they're like, oh, I thought my mom was doing this weird thing that no one else ever did. And it's like, no, like a lot of people are doing that. Don't worry. Like, we need to talk about these things. So your pictures can put so many words out there, you know, more than words can say. Those pictures can really show people how they can feel seen and, you know, where to even start with talking about these things.
I wanted to just follow up on that. When it was posted in the Washington or shared in the Washington Post, I made the mistake of reading the comments. A lot of them were positive, but there were a lot of negative, and I've read it before, where people feel that it is taking advantage of the loved one, sharing these images, and I just 100% disagree with that. You know, this is life. This is why people don't talk about dementia, is because they're so afraid to see what it really is. If we don't see it, we're not going to understand it. And I don't want to compare dementia or any illness to war, but it's the same thing. Sometimes you have to see what is going on to understand what is going on. And I get really surprised, maybe offended, when people have criticized photographers, what we're doing for exploiting their loved one. And as Helen said, yes, she did get consent from her mom. Yes, she got to a state where she probably couldn't consent, but Helen is not going to do something to hurt her mother or other children. And so I just feel it is so important to show people what this disease is, because I truly believe that bringing awareness brings understanding.
Yes.
Once you understand, you gain empathy. Once you gain empathy, you want to support different organizations within dementia. Then hopefully you're going to support financially. Financially helps us find a cure. And that is what this is all about, is awareness to cure. And that's what you have to do.
Yeah. So one of the things I want to say is I think that, you know, when I look at the current political, and this isn't a political commentary at all because it's happening on both sides, but, you know, with the two older presidential candidates who are having verbal gaffes and being both accused of dementia, what I think perhaps the biggest danger in that is people look at that and say, well, yeah, that's dementia, and yeah, it's not good, but it's not that bad, right? And what these photographs do is they paint a very stark picture of what it's really like. And perhaps if we had more photographs like this and we spent more time looking at that, we take the disease, the condition more seriously, spend more money on figuring out how to make it stop happening.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether you're comfortable doing this, Helen, but one of the things I'd love to maybe do is bring some of the pictures back up and just have you maybe talk a little bit about them.
Sure.
So why don't we do that, Jada? If you can, and Jada, thank you for doing this in the background running. She's the one who makes this whole thing happen, and I too often forget to say thank you and give her credit for it. So why don't you just talk to us about some of these images?
Sure. I mean, for me, I want to make sure that I'm capturing, well, how brutal and awful it really is. There's a lot of stuff, obviously, that's not shown here that I need an editor to help me with the book, obviously, but there'll be a line. It's hard to sort of know between, you know, I don't want to humiliate her, but also it needs to be how it is, and it needs to show how it is. For me, people think, you know, like I said, people think dementia's behind closed doors. It's in homes. It's in, you know, oh, I had a granny, but, you know, you go and see her once a month. You don't really know. We take mum out for dinner in the pub and everyone's a bit like, oh, you know, we don't see anyone like this out. And sort of everyone stares a little bit because we have to spoon feed her. And it's like they're not used to seeing people in the community, and not when they're kind of far sort of later stage, for sure. So, yeah, raising awareness. And I think that needs to be how brutal it is, how awful it is, because it isn't, you know, this Hollywood film with someone having a hug and a little dance with their granny because a song comes on from the 40s that they remember. It needs to be how the reality of it, because then people might say, oh, you know, that could be my mum, that could be, and they might put more money into it. And also, but like I said, more empathy, more care. People think it's just, oh, you know, it's really old people. They've had their life already. They're in the 90s. It doesn't really matter. You know, let's just fund kids with cancer. And I'm not saying that's not an awful thing either, but dementia's not people, just really old people. And it's a horrific disease, and it's affecting people from, you know, the ages of 40s, 50s to early onset. My mum had early onset. And also all the other people that get affected, the families, the carers, the loved ones, the husbands, the wives. So, yeah, the photographs are quite real. These ones.
So, talk to me about this photo here. I found this one to be just, I don't know, profoundly, it felt sad to me.
Yeah, so it is really sad. She'd come in and sat down in the little room I use as my office, and she went through a phase, she still sort of does it now, but she takes her clothes off a lot, and she used to keep pulling her trouser legs up. I don't know why, because it's cold and she hates the cold. But yeah, she'd sort of come in, and somehow she'd got half her pajamas on and half a jumper, because this, I think, was when she was still dressing herself. She just came in and sat down, but and I turned around, she just looked really, really lost. And lost, confused, sad, and she looks like that a lot. Like a lot. Sort of she just sat down and didn't know where, she just didn't seem to look like she knew where she was, where she belonged. Just a really heartbreakingly sad look. So I just grabbed my camera, and I think I shot 3 shots of that before she moved, or before the moment was kind of lost. But yeah, that I think she looks really sad in that one as well.
Yeah.
Sorry, I wanted to just say, I think it's just so important with these pictures too, that it's showing that it's not just memory loss.
Yeah, no, exactly.
There's so much more to it. And that's what's the stigma, is that, you know, you're just going to lose a few words. And it's like, no, it is your.
I mean, that one, she ate the soap because it was my nephew's birthday party, and she just picked it up and didn't know it's not food because everything goes in her mouth. Like,
I bet it looks like candy.
Ate a massive chunk of the soap. And so that's
your niece.
That's my niece. She does a lot. Sort of, she's getting a bit going off it now because she's getting older and hanging out with her friends and on YouTube all the time. But she used to really want to be a nurse and love helping Nanny and feeding her and bathing her and helping looking after her. Like, I'm still trying to encourage that, but she's usually sat on her iPad now. I think kick her off that. that was when she had real bad aggression and she hated water and bath time. So she used to bang the side of the bath and scream abuse at you, all the names, even though she never swore when she was.
Same with my mom.
And she'd scream and shout and try and kill you and dig her nails in and bend your fingers back. That's why the carers quit. Just get really, really aggressive and hated bath time and then cry because she just hated. Now she loves bath time again, which is amazing. We got her meds changed and she loves sitting in the bath. She falls asleep in the bath now and you can hear her snoring. She loves it. She's got one of those lie back chairs and she loves it. And that was Christmas.
My mom had a stroke and she got to the point where she just hated bathing. And so I absolutely, I get that. So this looks like Christmas.
Yeah.
Go. IKEA,
which our friend Robin said when he saw this one, he said, well, to be honest, Hels, that's what I look like after a trip to IKEA. And he's got a point.
Can I just state, I think because we look at, obviously it's heartbreaking what, and we're seeing a lot of emotion and sad emotions in pictures, but I also want to note, I also see another side too. I see that she is so loved and so well cared for, and she's in an intergenerational household, having experiences, having emotions as a person, being stressed at IKEA. She's a person and she's having these experiences still.
Yeah,
and that's something to say.
She's someone living with dementia.
And that's
I have my friends round and my friends, she loves people. So I have my friends round. My friend and her husband came around on Friday and we drink wine and give her a Baileys. And if we're laughing, she sort of starts laughing and we give her hugs. And she likes being around people. So that's really nice for her. People don't come that often because people are busy. And a lot of people don't know how to deal with people with dementia or talk to them. I've got a couple of my friends are amazing with her, really, really cool. And just talk to her. And, when she says incoherent things back, we just say, great, brilliant. And my friend Lindsay does that. And she still, when we were 17, she used to pull her hair messing around driving, tweak it. So she still does that. Mum doesn't really notice now, but we still sort of mess around and pinch her cheeks and do things we used to do when we were naughty teenagers. Just because I think maybe somewhere deep down she knows that. And Lindsay hugs her and kisses her. My friend Becca does. And then I've got other people that just act like she's not there if we go out for afternoon tea or something because they don't know what to say, so they say nothing. And they just kind of talk to other people and pretend she's not there. And I find that really hard, but it's just their way of dealing because they don't know how to
you
deal.
don't know. And it's that lack of education. And that's why it's so important to have these conversations because people are just uncomfortable. And I understand that that's also why, how we are showing things and talking about things, only seeing negative. They're still a person and we can treat them as a person. Dementia is part of their life, but they can still be, have fun and be a part of your
They still contribute to society. I still always say that they still contribute to society.
Yes.
And we need to treat them with that respect.
And she still has a bit of a naughty sense of humor. It doesn't come out much anymore, but occasionally she used to love pinching my sister's partner's bottom because she would always go hee and giggle and do that. And she hasn't done that in a really long time, but she did it the other week and we just all loved it because it's been a while. So that made us all laugh. And a couple of days ago, it was beautiful. She just looked right into my face and said, I love you so much. And that one coherent sentence I haven't had for ages, but she never looked into my face. She never makes she's looking everywhere but. Yeah. So that was a beautiful moment. So I wrote that down.
That's amazing.
And then there's funny, naughty moments. She makes me laugh. She still giggles at stuff. And if you jiggle her and put music on, she loves music. And I dance with her. And I'm quite, what's the word? Energetic. Not immature, but I have a zest for life. So I like to she used to dance. I used to take her swing dancing because I love swing dancing. And she used to do jiving when she was younger and she loved that. Now she doesn't, she's scared to stand up, but we do it with her sitting in the chair. So we just move her arms and so that's nice. And there's that one picture where she's got this beautiful light in the living room. And she's actually, that one. It's quite a funny story because she'd thrown a whole drink across the room. So I told her off because that was back in the, she still does it if you let her hold it. But she didn't want to drink it because they don't like drinking. So she used to throw it, kind of on purpose. Well, on purpose. So I told her off because it's all over the kitchen floor. It's sticky because it's, and I'm, smoothie everywhere. So I told her off. So she stomped off into the living room. And when I came in to see what she was doing, so that she didn't have to listen to me, she tied the curtain tie around her head. So it was almost like, I'm not listening. And she always was really stubborn as a child, and stubborn. So I quite like the sort of stubborn, like, no.
That's great.
Yeah,
Well,
so
I want to say that we were just so honored to give this grant to Helen in this work. It's so beautiful. The judges and I were just so moved by it, drawn to it, and very proud to have this work represent the Bob and Diane Fund and what we are doing. So thank you,
I'm so
Helen.
honored and proud to be part of it.
Thank you so much. I guess for me, I love you sort of closing us out with that story, because the question I was going to ask, but you answered without me asking, is where and how do you still find joy in this? And clearly you have found a way to find these moments of joy, to see the parts of her that are still there, and to remember the parts that maybe aren't so much there anymore. And that's just, this is so, so powerful. I love your passion. I love the fact that you love your mom and you've devoted your life to this and to these photographs. And so I wish I could have I wish I had another half an hour so we could
Me too.
continue
It's
talking
lovely
and
talking to you.
sharing this story. And but we don't. So Gina, Helen, Carrie, thank you so much. Thank you for making a difference in the lives of older people. It is so important, and ultimately makes the world a better place. So with that, thank you for watching, and we will be back next Friday with another show.
Thanks for having us.